Hi everyone, this is Naishat Gadani coming to you from Melbourne, and this is Career Care Package's 108th show. The show is about cutting through or cut out, how to make your resume stand out. Well, a wise woman said that everything you write on a resume needs to earn its place there. So tonight on Career Care Package, we are talking on how to make a resume stand out. A standout resume has no fluff, no exaggerated claim, no weasel waffle. And to talk with us on this very topic, we are welcoming Matt Warzel from MJW Careers, all the way from North Carolina. I know that's somewhere in US, but I can't point where exactly it is. And Matt's been writing resume and providing job search since 2003. So we are talking on how to make a great resume, but let's welcome the co-host Caroline Brown.
Thanks, Snaesh. I feel very welcome. It's great to be here tonight. I'm really excited to talk to you, Matt, about writing a resume, and thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited about it.
Excellent. So, a great place to start would be to tell our audience about what you do with your company, and I think the type of people that you support finding jobs.
Absolutely. So MJW Careers, we're in Wilmington, North Carolina. It's kind of on the coast, near if you want to go between Florida and DC, kind of around that area, right in the middle between. But essentially, for the last 15 years, been kind of honed my craft of writing resumes and career coaching and interview training ever since I started in HR initially in recruiting. So a lot of people say, how do you end up in HR? And it's kind of always a roundabout way. Not many people come out of school going, I'm going to be in HR. So
Exactly.
I was one of those people as well. And so, after kind of honing in on what hiring managers are looking for in resumes and kind of dealing with requisitions and recruiting game, which is, as anyone who's out there as a recruiter knows, it's pretty cutthroat. It's intense. It's a lot of ups and downs. It's one of those kind of businesses where you can thrive in it, but if some people might get burned out, and that's kind of what happened to me. I got a little bit burned out from the staffing and placement of folks. And once we had the 2008 financial crisis, I kind of shifted gears from recruiting and went all in on resume writing and career coaching. And so for the past 11 years, that's been full time. So I went from kind of doing all these things to just resume writing. So that's where I feel, I kind of try to stay on the trends and learn what's going on in the world with resumes and kind of how to make things stand out more. And I don't necessarily cater to a specific audience. I'm more of a catch-all. So, I've written over 10,000 resumes at this point. So it's not anything I haven't seen before. Usually comes my way. I even did once a NASA astronaut cover letter. So, and some, pro athletes and all sorts of fun stuff. So I really enjoy it because I was able to blend my business kind of writing and business mindset and acumen with my kind of creativity, because there is a science behind writing resumes or CVs or anything for that matter. You don't go hire your marketing content writing friend to write your resume because they're a writer, so to, quote unquote. So there's some things that we do that I think will separate you from the competition, just purely based off of what we know should stay in and should get out, which what you leave in, what you leave out. So.
Yeah, one of the reasons I was interested in chatting to you is that I think the US resumes are shorter and more concise, I think, than Australian resumes. We like a bit of a chat on our resumes sometimes. But what's happening in the market? We all know that the employment market's pretty dire. It's dire here in Australia. It's dire here in the States. But what kind of resumes do you see cutting through at this particular point in time? Is there something that you're doing differently from, say a year ago?
That's a great question, by the way. And I think we're still kind of figuring out just what and how this employment market's going to look and how and what type of initiatives or strategies we're going to be utilizing to kind of cut through it. So I think with hiring right now, we're all kind of in the dark and we're wondering, will we come out of this where companies will have, more socially aware or have more of a conscious before they just cut a whole department, or, is the bottom line going to be as much impact, which I, probably will. I mean, I hate to say that, but you hope that maybe the bottom line might not be as heavy of an impact as maybe the culture and being able to keep people on and have that retention and not make them feel as much of a number per se. But again, people that I'm speaking with, hire managers or recruiters that I have calls with that, are in the trenches right now hiring, they're still kind of like, what is going to happen? So I don't know necessarily if there's a difference per se in how I approach resume writing yet. But I will say this, and this has kind of been a kind of a theme for a little while here, but the old Jack and Jill of all trades kind of idea where you can, do a bunch of things and you want to get it all on the resume and show them that you can handle accounting and supply chain and marketing. It's like, no. So be niche, have a driver and figure out what you want to do. And then even if it's an industry, figure out where you want to fit into that industry or what you think you can offer. And then figure out what are the people doing what you think you can do and figure out how they got there and really hone in on a skill or a trade or a role and then grow from there and give value to the hiring managers in that type of capacity, because I think that's going to help you stand out more in your resume, is having it more of a narrow focus and then wowing them throughout that messaging about that one particular focus.
And it sounds like you did quite. It sounds repetitive, but it sounds like you did quite deep when you're writing a resume with people. So how do you get people's story out so you do know that you're presenting quite a compelling message about them? What's your process with that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think a lot of it, I lean heavily on my pre-screening questions that I'll try to just get as much as I can out of that. You kind of suck as much as you can out of them before they leave it to you to then go and try to fill in gaps and pieces without obviously fibbing, because that's rule number one, is don't lie, because it will come back to you. Especially if you actually get the job and then you're starting to have to do things you have on your resume. But that's kind of where they lean on us, is saying, hey, I know the industry speak, or I know some of the keywords, or we call them buzzwords, which I can get into later. But, these are the things that we have just from our day-to-day, how to fill in these blanks. So I lay heavily on, let them tell me first, what are your accomplishments? What are some really neat things you've done to impact the bottom line, regardless if you're responsible for a metric. Not everyone has a Excel sheet at the end of the day saying, here's your numbers. Not everyone's in sales, kind of thing. So, but you got to think in terms of every day you're going to work, every day you're accomplishing tasks. What are they doing for the greater whole? And did you notice any sort of efficiency improvement or waste reduction, or, maybe you had a project where you salvaged a customer that was angry, and you might think, not a big deal. I just kind of helped them through the call troubleshooting. It's like, well, now you just saved them, X amount of dollars in revenue that they were going to lose if the person on the other end was upset. So you got to really think in terms of what's your accomplishments and value that you're bringing every day, and then start tracking this stuff in a journal. Like, write out, odd projects or just neat things that are apart from your day to day. And once you kind of get this toolbox of neat things you've done, whether it's new technical skills you acquire or new processes or whatever, then you can start piecing it together, your actual resume and its messaging, a lot easier, rather than trying to really think back the last 10 years. So it's smart, I think, for candidates to really try to hone in on their day-to-day, make it about really putting all they got into it, and that includes tracking your accomplishments.
It's funny. I think some people, like when I've worked with people on resumes as well, and I think people undersell themselves with the worry that they're going to oversell themselves a little bit, or they have the wrong kind of detail on their CV, so they might overinflate something but not draw out the really meaty and interesting stuff as well. So, yeah. Naish, do you have any questions for Matt?
No, just wanted to let you know LinkedIn is not going to work. It has dropped again. So we'll be doing Facebook and YouTube live. Don't worry. We will still make you a superstar in at
Thank
least
you.
in
You go
Melbourne.
back
I
and
was worried
say,
about
Just
me
to
mainly.
just to let you know.
yeah, I wonder whether it's because we're
No,
doing, we started streaming to YouTube recently.
I I have no idea. I have no idea, and I've just sent a tweet out to StreamYard and say, "What the hell's happening?
Yeah.
And if
This has
people
happened
respond,
twice, right?" So we will figure that out before tomorrow. Now, Matt, obviously, resume writing has is an adapted skill for me. I can talk until cows come home, but when it comes to writing, I really have to really channelize my creative energy into that. A lot of us talk about the strategy of resumes, that what's the basic strategy. How do I somebody wants to write that, right? I think you spoke about being so much niche in like having that amount of clarity. One of the things that I wanted to sort of understand from your process point of view is that, do you then also work with them to kind of define their clarity, or work with them to really work out where do they want to go, or do they have to come up with that idea by themselves?
Absolutely, and that's kind of where the career coaching aspects start coming in.
Yeah.
So if someone comes to me and they're absolutely clueless, if they're willing to invest that time and dollars to utilize me to help them find their way, so to speak, absolutely. Because I think it's more of a challenge when I get clients coming my way who don't know what they want to do. I mean, that's kind of where you're okay. It's step back and let's really assess and start kind of piecing together and working together to figure out what's your passions, what's realistic out there. Because a lot of times, people can start writing these fantasy jobs, and it's like, well, let's kind of hone in on the pragmatism around this. But um, ideally, though, obviously, if I get someone coming my way and they know what they want to do, it's a lot easier for me, because now it's just a matter of, what do we need to just get out of you, because you've already been doing this. Let's just kind of cut a lot of what you've already been having on your resume. A lot of times you get those people that come at you with overloaded information, and you sift through to mine the gold nuggets out there. But in that case, though, absolutely, career coaching. I mean, I would say that to the audience: if you are unsure and you maybe reflected on things and you've really tried to hone in on an idea, but you really can't get there. I'm dealing with this right now with my niece, actually. So, and she just graduated, and she's these poor 2020 kids. I mean, what a horrible time to graduate, and I feel so bad for them. And I hope employers notice that when they're considering talent, that kid glove these people, because I mean, this is something no one's ever kind of dealt with coming out of in modern times. And so, I'm trying to tell her, like, what'd you learn in classes, and what'd you get out of stuff that made you excited? Because as you guys know, after all these years we've been working, it's nice being in a role that is satisfying. And I mean, I'm not the pro golfer I wanted to be. I'm not the drummer on the stage. I mean, we're not all going to live the life that we want, but I mean, I like doing what I'm doing because I get satisfaction out of helping people get interviews and jobs and changing livelihoods. So it's important work. And I think if people can just, be gentle on themselves and know, hey, I'm not going to be in the orchestra touring around the world, but maybe I can do something similar to it, or maybe I could be a teacher in it, or maybe I can start, consultant classes with students in the area, whatever. Get creative and think of ways you can still brush into that world and be a part of, music or sports, or, at movies, or whatever the fun stuff. So, I feel that if people are lost, reach out and get help. I mean, there's so many good resources. I mean, even if you were to tap your local, there's local business support things that are free. We have SCORE and DBA. I think it's DBA. Sorry, early. I haven't talked to them in a while, but so we have these kind of different companies that are willing to help small businesses or entrepreneurs or gig economists. So, put yourself in that world and see if maybe somebody can help you learn what you might want to do that relates to something you have a passion for.
I think it's hard, isn't it, when you first start, when you first go out in the marketplace and people say to you that question around what's your passion? It's like, well, I don't know yet. I don't know until I've done a few things and I made a few mistakes, or I think we put a lot of pressure on people and pressure on ourselves to really, really nail it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you don't have to. That I'm glad you said. Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt, but you don't have to do that either. Like sometimes people wait to jump off the diving board too long. It's like just jump, and then you can go and be a master diver by the end of the day. Like don't be the master diver on the first one. And so that's a big one. I see a big one in day-to-day life of people I know that procrastinators will call them, but at the same time they're not even they're like ready to work and they're doing all these planning, but there's no execution. There's just so much planning, and then they just crumble because they're like, my plan's not coming together where I thought I could start day one correctly. It's like, no, just start day one. And I mean, when I first started, I'm sure I had customers. Now I'll look back and go, oh my God, those are the resumes I did, but they were $50 and they were 10 years ago. And you're not really, it's very important work. You don't want to make anybody not be a competitive candidate, but we all kind of take our lumps and learn, and there's refunds to be had. And, you're learning things that you're like, I won't do that again in my business. So, people need to just dive in and stop getting in their heads so much and just take action, because if it's something you don't like, then in a few months you gave it your all, as much as you probably could, and you get burned out. Well, then try something new, but at least it's 3 months. It's not a lifetime. Just people take a year off and go travel Europe and do stuff after college. I mean, take that year and go do a bunch of odd jobs and figure out just things that you can do to fill the time, and maybe something will brush on you and you think, okay, this was a pretty neat odd job. Maybe I'll explore this little industry or world a little bit more. So, I mean, just take action. That's another one. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, it's a funny thing, just talking about when you started your business. Like I left the corporate world, and I knew I'd enjoyed writing, and I'd been in HR and recruitment, and so I set up a website, and I put my marketing on my website around a friend of mine who was an executive in marketing, thinking she's the type of client I'd love to get. Wrote the blurb and put up my Google AdWords and whatever. And my very first client was a train driver. So I'm like, well, that worked. So, but I know this. The benefit of working with an outside professional is that they can see things. Like you can see things in people that they can't actually see themselves, and the market and that type of thing. But it is diving in the deep end sometimes as well. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you a question about what mistakes do you see people make in resumes? What are typical things that people shoot themselves in the foot with?
Absolutely. I mean, the first thing, and it's funny, I actually wrote a blog about pet peeves about 2 weeks ago, and it's so funny because I mean, you as a writer too, something. Okay, first off, the biggest mistakes are going to be grammar related, spelling, anything that relates to over capitalizing. I know that's one that drives me crazy. But what's funny is these aren't existential mistakes. People think there's nitpicky mistakes, and then there's messaging mistakes. And so messaging is obviously the one that's going to it's going to hold a lot more, I think, volume, because if they're on the fly, they might not catch the THE spelled TEH, the thes and stuff like that. I mean, those things will bite you in the butt sometimes, but it's the messaging. If your tone and how you're presenting your credentials and in what matter and what flow, that stuff I think is going to be way the most heavy. Is your experience matching up with what they have open? I mean, that's kind of the first thing I did as a recruiter was go right to the experience, because what have you been doing? Because I need to make sure you can kind of do it right now for me. But as far as nitpicky, the cap, I know I'm not sure if you've had this happen, Carolyn, but the over capitalizing where you got to go and start filling in all these little letters, so you're like, why did you capitalize every sentence?
God, that drives me nuts.
It's
the random capitalization.
Yeah, the random. That's my number one. I don't know why. It's because it puts so much work on me in the back end when I'm trying to manipulate it. But and then I hate the no dashes between the phone number, where it's all clumped together. Misspelling, using ambiguous or unclear verbiage. I don't like when they try to outsmart the reader. When people come to me, I get it. You might be a PhD and you're a physician, but you got to remember, the recruiters, we're marketing people, we're management people, we're people that were real estate, that never even went to college, that, because as recruiters, it was almost like, do you have a pulse? Yes. Come on in. And you will stick around if you have a brain too, but if you don't, you're out the door. But And it's not one of these, again, it's a cutthroat one, but it's not like this kind of industry where, and not to bag on industries, but, insurance sales, you come out of school, if you got a marketing degree, we got hounded by Affleck. That was like our thing. Affleck, you would come be a salesman. It's, commission only. And that's fine, but that's the reputation Affleck decided to have in the market. They decided it was commission only and it was a churning style kind of thing. So recruiting almost had that aspect to it. But honestly, if you are trying to outsmart people, it's not going to work, because the gatekeepers like us that are marketing people that we just need to see if you can fit the role. I don't need to know what every intricacy is the surgery you're performing, but I need to know that you can do the surgery. So if you start trying to outsmart me, or like my IT clients that decide that they want to put on 50 acronyms in the first half of the page, you're bogging down the reader, because we're military folks. Like I try to help my military transitioners reduce that verbiage, that content that weighs heavy, that does nothing to do with the private sector, and try to figure out what the correlations are. But yeah, ambiguous, too long, or long-winded, too much information. Like we said, what do you cut in? What do you leave in? What do you leave out? I don't want to know about your time at IBM in 1993. It really, as much as it might have been fantastic for you, hire managers are busy people, and they got to get to the point. So, and then I could go. I got probably 15 more, but just some ideas. Just take care of your document, because it's a one and done. It's a living, breathing thing. Don't get me wrong. You're continuously updating, making it better. But when you're initially starting it, once you're done with that first version, that or let's say fifth version, but you're the revised version, finalized copy, you're good for a minute. Like, use that for a minute. And then as you accumulate continuing education or what have you, you can keep adding to it, because it doesn't die out. This thing should be continuously added to and tweaked. But, don't make it so daunting. Get a first version done that you're proud of, that looks good, mistake free, and start using it. This isn't a novel that you got to come to every day and get daunted by the 1,000 words you still have to, so I think people should be mindful that this is your key. This is your marketing document for your livelihood to improve, for thousands of dollars to be had. So take it serious and go through it with a fine-tooth comb. Grammarly, there's plenty of software out there now, and show the hire manager that you care, that you give a what. Because if you're sloppy, if you turn it in where it looks like, and you guys know from seeing the resumes that come to you that you're like, this is as unprofessional as it gets in terms of layout and how they, they speak, the technical stuff on it, whatever, the statements they make. And so, you can see that that's not a viable candidate based off of, they didn't take the time to get this done right. So these other 10 people did. So now I'm going to go through them and see which one's a fit.
It's funny, I was looking at somebody's resume the other day, and he was a very senior person, and his resume looked like one of those ones that you get off of graphics, you download off Canva or whatever. It looked like a marketing resume. And so the tone and the font, it just completely was absolutely the wrong fit for that kind of person. So I hear exactly what you're saying. What do you think about how much advice do you give? What advice do you give to people around tailoring their resume for every role? Do you get people to match it up to every role that they're going for, or do you sort of have one master copy that you suggest people use?
I always say it's better to have multiples for different job types. That's my first answer. But again, that could be, a little bit more of a premium depending on your budget. So they really have to figure out, okay, if you're going to go out there trying to hone in on 3 different titles and 3 different roles into one resume, know that you're probably not going to be as competitive as the people that have done one role per resume. So that's the first kind of professional answer. But having said that, there are certain things, like if it's a sales marketing person, and this is just getting specific, but I really have to take it case by case. Are you someone that's trying to be in sales and accounting or sales and marketing? Because if it's sales and marketing, I could probably blend them. It wouldn't be as daunting for the reader, a person that's kind of similar stuff. But if it's finance and then an operation or a supply chain without the two meshing, and you're like, I want to do procurement, but I also want to handle the accounting and QuickBooks. Now it's like, well, let's just get 2 resumes, because let's make you look like a fiscal minded person, and then let's make you look like a supply chain driven person. So, I'm a big believer of that. Now, having said that, what I'll tell my clients that might only have a 1 resume and they ask me for advice, how can I do this to tailor it? I'll say, take your first half So we're saying everything up into experience. This includes a summary, your core skills, and then accomplishments. Those three things you can alter. Experience can stay the same. Education, certification, volunteer, all that stuff can stay the same. So your summary you alter now to make it look more appropriate for whatever role. The buzzwords, change them out. Fill them all in and change them out so it looks like the different roles. And then accomplishments, which is really cool because this is a section where you maybe got 5 to 10 statements that are really big wow ones that directly relate to the role that's open. And that's where you can kind of get creative now. Now maybe you worked at IBM in 95 doing IT management, and then you went off and did freelance, real estate investment with people. And then you want to go back to IT. So it's like, okay, let's figure this out. So what we do is you can take some of those really neat things you did in IT management in the 90s, throw them up here in the accomplishments section, and then just leave that IT management as a previous work history where it's still showing on there, but we're not going into what you did there because it's all the way at the bottom of page 2 or whatever. So you can use that really good stuff and put it in the accomplishments section. So you can say led a technical team of X amount of people, whatever. And now at the interview, let them figure out where you did it at. Let them talk to you about your story and where all these neat things that are at the top half of your page relate to having been in real estate or wherever, investment stuff, financial investments the last 20 years are like, okay, well, clearly this was probably from back in before that, but let them ask you that, because once you're in an interview, and that's all I do is try to get people in interview rooms. And you might be able to wow them then to tell them, no, I can deal with this still, and here's why. Because once you get in an interview room, gloves are off. I mean, you can convince anyone. You're in that room. They want you to be the right fit. They're not going to waste their time bringing you in the room. Just say, hey, let's just have a chat with this guy. He seemed interesting. No, yeah. I mean, they want you. Clearly, they see you could be a fit. So wow them then.
Yeah. Fantastic advice. What about applicant tracking systems? Do you do anything with because Nation and I have had a few sessions on those, and what do we call it? The applicant terrorizing system.
Yeah. Oh my God! If I would have known what these things would evolve to back in the 2000s, I was like, at first it was just like just software that we put resumes in. I'm like, this is easy. This makes sense. It's just just kind of housing resumes. Now it's like, what? I got off a call last week about I constantly am on calls about ATS because this is where I live and breathe now, and I don't obviously hundreds of them. There's hundreds of rules. They're all different depending on what the hiring manager wants to use them for. So, audience, don't look at us as being the number one expert on ATS because no one is, because everything is different everywhere. But again, my approach to every client is pragmatism, logics. If I'm telling their story as logical as possible, there shouldn't be anyone in the room doubting them in what they can do. So I do the same thing with ATS. If you don't have borders, bells, whistles, lines over here, this line over here, text box over here. If you just have a nice flow, but also, looks neat, looks aesthetically pleasing. There's little templates out there that look really neat and almost would appear to be something like an ATS nightmare type format, but it really isn't. Those are some nice templates to get a hold of. And so essentially have it laid out so when it goes through ATS, it's not getting eliminated based off the aesthetics. And next, you got to play the ATS game. So this isn't like, okay, this company has this opening. What words could I possibly have there? No, they have them on a job description, people. This is like, as a recruiter, I don't know what my IT people are doing in the back room, but when I get an open requisition, they're going to have all this stuff, these requirements that they want. So the recruiter isn't going to all of a sudden take that and throw it out the door and start recruiting just off of their own brain. No, they're going to look at this and go, here's where I'm going to recruit for. And so there's words in there and there's content that you can use to get on your resume that that they're probably going to use to find you. So, and this is where it can get a little, heavy-winded, long-winded and heavy for these recruiters because, if you're trying to find a salesperson and you know how many salespeople are in the world, including me pretty much, it's like, you really got to get creative. And so you got to almost think in terms of what stuff are they going to be searching for to find you, whether it's a software CRM that maybe they have specific to their company or a methodology. Maybe they want people to have spin selling and background or whatever. So really try to think in terms of, on the job description, what are those ones that are outside of the typical can close, can negotiate, can cold call, so, and then another step further is you can go on LinkedIn at the very bottom of the and the endorsements on everybody's profile page. Those are wonderful. Those are auto-populated ones too. And those ones are just a treasure trove of ideas for you to include on your resume. If you don't have them already and you've done it, might be a good idea to get it on there if it's looking like it's kind of a popular thing that a lot of people who in your capacity are having on their profile. So, look at those endorsements under there too for a good idea to find them. But again, essentially ATS, your best bet is make it where you play the game as logical as possible without having anybody kind of, question, is this going to be something that's in the job description or not? Play the game logical where if you're following the rules of the description, most likely you're going to get at least a buzzword or two that'll be on those recruiting searches.
Yeah, very sensible advice.
I think what I sometimes struggle with is the clients not really being clear on the accomplishments, or the success stories. How do you work with clients to really bring the success stories out? Because a lot of the people that I work with, I primarily work with a lot of immigrants when they come from overseas to make Australia their home, and most of them have never experienced unemployment. They've consistently worked, and they must have had huge amount of accomplishments. But they say, I've done so many things, but I don't know whether I can exactly pinpoint. I can't quantify them. That's another thing. Nishad, I can't quantify that I saved half a million dollar. I can't really quantify. How do you work with them, and what are some of the tips to help clients to really figure out their success stories?
Yeah, so that's a good question. And a lot of times my accomplishment, well, we'll say two parts here, and immediately, accomplishments are going to be bottom line impact, things you've done that are different from your day-to-day roles, things that may have, again, and I call them business quantifiers, like I said earlier. Did you reduce waste? Did you streamline efficiencies, or what have you? So here's how I approach it. If you don't have a metric tied to it, if there's no way of getting a percentage or a dollar sign or whatever, take the sentence that's a task. So like, a warehouse worker might be, just responsible for making deliveries. Okay, so most of the time you're going to get them where they say, delivered goods to customer sites, whatever. And you're like, okay, good. I get it. We all kind of knew you were doing that. So let's take that. So you can say something like, and this has to be real, but you could say something like, okay, did you do it all on time? Oh, I did. Excellent. There you go. There's one quantifier. Ensured 100% on-time deliverables, and then finish the sentence in terms of what the task was. Ensured 100% on-time deliverables by timely loading and unloading 100 tons average daily cargo or whatever. So now it's like, wow, this person's coming to me saying they're a warehouse worker, but look at how they're showing that they understand their value and their bottom line. And that wows what hiring managers. That's the stuff hiring managers want to see, because they're like, they're flying, and all of a sudden it's 4:00 and they're like, I got to go through these resumes. This sucks. I have so many things going haywire in the operations, but I got to stop my day to look at resumes because these people keep quitting on me. And probably not a good manager, but that's the kind of thing that they're rushed already. So make it worth their time. Don't just say stuff that's your task, because the hiring managers know what you're doing based off your title half the time. They want to know what you did that impacted that. So when you say, how can you think of these accomplishments? It's like, you almost like, if you can, again, anything out of the ordinary that might have been really neat that you did project wise or whatever, that's an accomplishment. But then if you can't think of anything out of the ordinary, maybe there's nothing really out of the ordinary ever happens. Take your day and start really piecing in every responsibility in terms of a bottom line impact, and use these quantifiers. And I have plenty of blogs about what these quantifiers are. But if you're having a hard time with that, then go find a job description of what you were when you got hired and start taking every line, all 10 of those lines on there, and tweak them so they look like they are, having some more impact to the bottom line or a value, and you'll be set. That'll be your 5 to 10, and you can, use that as going forward as your ammunition for as you continue to add more stuff to your resume or CV. That still sits on there, that still breathes on there, and that still shows that impact on there. So you don't have to touch it. It's like, that looks good. Just now keep adding stuff.
It's funny because I think, that, the before examples that we all see, always generally a list of responsibilities or accountabilities, or they mix up their achievements or the value that they add with what their responsibilities were, and it's all in a mess. And just doing that kind of sifting out process that you're talking about, you're doing, your clients a real service in getting them to see what the impact they have on an organisation is, and that even being able to identify, like you say, 5 of those will lift that resume above the pack from people that are just listing responsibilities. But yeah, I hear you, Naish, because I think people do get it. You think, oh God, save the company $25 billion or whatever. It's not about that. It's about doing your role and understanding the value that you have,
Yep.
or where you fit in and influence things within that chain as well. So
Absolutely. That's great.
And sometimes it's also, I think, just to add on that, and then Katie, you can go ahead with the question, is also giving a context also, because I remember, working with a client who was a financial manager, a financial controller of a company, and when the global financial crisis hit, he actually moved the investment into from stocks to something which was more stable, like gold or something. And what that happened was that they could actually make some more money rather than losing money when the money was in the stocks, right? The invested, right? So
Sounds radical.
Yeah. So when I was talking to him, he said, "Oh, Nishad, I saved around, I made around, $200,000." But I said, "Give me a context." And then he said, during the global financial crisis, I said, "Now that's a bigger context, because when people see that, they see that you are unfazed in the face of uncertainty, and you stood your ground, you used your analytical skills to change that." And in that context, I think you made a really remarkable outcome for the employers. I think context is also in my understanding important, and sometimes it's also the domino effect of your role. So if you've done something right, and that has an impact on the next process, and because if you've done something really radical that helped a couple of other teams to save money, make money, or improve their process, or reduce the waste, I think you can also partially take a credit for that, because of your impact on this process. They were able to do process much better. So yeah, so I think those are a couple of things that I also tell the clients to really think deeper about it, because it's all until you really speak to them, it's all superficial. Yeah, I've done that, but they don't really think deeper about their impact on various part of the organization.
I love that, and the context. That's brilliantly said, because I've had that specifically come to me in numerous times about people wanting to mention what was happening, whether it was a meltdown where we all knew about the financial crisis, or something maybe in an industry where we might not know, but it happened in industry people know. And so they would come to me and say, "I got to mention this." And excuse me, that's where I think we get paid as writers, is the command of the written document. So we take this paragraph of story and impact and their scenario, and we got to get it into 2 lines. And not only that, we don't use personal pronouns. We don't, I don't have long-winded paragraphs over here. I got to get this down. We have this kind of Twitter mentality over here where it's brevity, go, 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 go. And so that's where I get paid, is to spin this paragraph into 1 sentence, 2 lines max, roughly, on a resume, and make it impactful, action verb driven, value based, and get the story in without using an I. I'm going to spin this without having the word I right here. But there's ways, and that's kind of where that's where you're paying. That's where my money is made by content. Mainly is getting these words right on the paper and looking good and sharp and businessy. Not so
underestimate actually what it does take to really write a good resume, like really get your head inside the client's head, but also inside the types of roles that they're going for and what the job market's looking for, and actually prioritizing that information so the important stuff pops out. So how much work are you doing around helping clients tap into the hidden job market? Do you help people network and use their resume to network and that kind of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the big things I've been really researching a lot, is how to use LinkedIn and how to kind of be creative on your job hunt. And I call them the backdoor kind of ideas, backdoor job hunting. And it's not a new thing. It's just, I think people are starting to understand that there's ways to do stuff other than just apply and, they call it spray and pray, and which, obviously we've all done it. I mean, I was a victim of it, when I used to look for work, because you're like, hey, more people I get in front of, something's going to happen. Which, it is a numbers game too, don't get me wrong, but you got to have some quality applications. Don't just be, especially if you're applying to one company, don't be the person that applies to every job, because recruiters talk and you will get blacklisted, and it stinks, but it's what it is. If you're annoying people, they're not going to want to deal with you. And so I think first off, I want to say is, if you're more prone to giving, offering advice, trying to make beneficial relationships that are for both sides, not just you, give me job, give me interview. I think first off, you're going to go a lot farther. And I think in any business, whether it's, how we are as resume writing and career coaching, if we help each other and get people, butts in seats, so to speak, we're all done together. It's fine if you get the money, and then maybe next time I'll get the money. So people are like not so honed in on the money hungry idea and getting ahead and jumping on whoever it takes to get ahead, which obviously it's not a catch-all, because there's plenty of people that do it and they are wealthy and it worked and now they have no friends, but whatever, they got there. That's fine and dandy. But I think that if you're someone who's got integrity and, genuine, you're making a genuine approach to this backdoor job hunting, it'll go a lot further. So having said that, some specific things I like is, first, I like this whole idea of, tapping into someone at the company, whether it's a recruiter or someone in a department that, you aspire to be in, and reaching out and saying, hey, do you mind if I, bend your ear a little bit? And essentially you're just trying to say, how is the company working for them? What's the culture like? And what are ideas that, and again, bear in mind, you still want to try to offer something too. So that's the catchy thing, is how can you offer something? And then you want to say, how can I be a better candidate? Don't have to send my resume to anybody. I just want to know, what do you see as being a good way to really be standing out amongst competition, and just open a dialogue, because people will talk about their company and what they do, and they love doing that. And if you're honing in on this information, and then you can maybe even say, hey, I'll throw you a $10 Amazon card if I could bend your ear then. Do some little incentive. I call it iced coffee. So you're kind of like, it's not so much you're not kind of buying them a coffee in person anymore. Now it's just like, here, let me give you like a gift card or something. Depending on how much money you have, you can get creative, but this is just an idea. So, and then you take that 10 minutes, you give them $10, you get 10 minutes, and then you can really try to hone in on having establish a beginning of relationship that you can continuously tickle and establish rapport with someone at that company. And maybe possibly then, after you had some dialogue and some relationship building, maybe they'll be prone to helping you a little bit further. But again, it takes time. This isn't like, I'm going to get a job in 3 weeks and it's going to start now. This could take 6 months, and you really got to massage these relationships. So that's one idea of trying to get just someone in the company to start talking to you. Another one is social media. If you hound them, in terms of not negative, I'm talking you're sharing, you're commenting, you're, being involved. Somebody on the other end is going to notice, your handle, and maybe you can leverage that. Then you can reach out and say, hey, I shared your article over here, and I got some people to really enjoy your brand, and almost kind of be an advocate. And then you could say, maybe you mind if I bend your ear and just figure out how can I be a better candidate in your business, in your company. I really enjoy your company. So, there's just different ways to really hone in. And again, I've got some blogs about this. I could go on for some more, but it's like there are people out there that you can tap that can help you get to get to where you want to go. But you just, again, be genuine about it and don't be gimme. Offer something. Maybe you can think of a strategy to help them if you saw them in the news and on a Google News, and you go, oh, this is what they're dealing with, and that's in my world. This is my department. Maybe I'll talk to them about this news thing or whatever. Just kind of something where it shows that you can actually offer them some advice, maybe. And again, this is like you got to do some thinking. It's not just a Google search and then it tells you what to do. We actually have to be thinking of our own strategies and try to formulate ideas. And people are doing it, and it's working.
Yeah, there's so much information in social media, on LinkedIn and so forth now. You can always pick a clue and start that as the seed that you plant, I guess, is one way to look at it. So
absolutely.
Yeah. Nate, got any more questions? We've put Matt
no, I don't. I think other thing is, if we can probably, because you also write LinkedIn profiles too. What are your hot tips on LinkedIn profile writing as well? Because I've seen, and also, this is what traditionally my understanding, and probably KB would agree with it, that United States is, it's pretty direct, pretty sales. If you're not really able to sell yourself directly, then you're not, nobody will cut through. Where Australia is a little bit laid back. They want to see the sales, but they just don't want to see the sales because they don't want to say, no, you know what, just back it away from me, right? Yeah. So tell us, what are some of the emerging trends around LinkedIn? Because 600 million people, I don't know what LinkedIn is going to do after 2, 3, 4, 5 years. I don't even know how many, what will happen to all these profiles, and the sheer volume of people. It's just too difficult for people to be found just based on keywords. I just don't understand that people could be found just purely based on keywords unless you've got a humongous or sizable network. But what are some of the 2020 tips on the LinkedIn profile writing?
Sure. Well, first and foremost, keep it professional. It's not your Facebook, so I'm a believer of matching your content from your resume. I know this can go all over the board. Everybody's got two different sides. I'm fine with it. My thing is, when I used to recruit, and this is kind of comes down to the American recruiter is a busybody who's responsible for numbers, and so I've never been in a recruiting scenario where the hiring manager's like, "Don't worry about it. We'll get him. We'll get her. No, just go home. You get out of here. You had a long few hours." I was there 6 a.m. to 6, 7 p.m. I mean, it was like, you were driven to meet the numbers. So having said that, if I'm taking time to digest every story on LinkedIn, I'm never going to find anybody. And so when I was recruiting, it was fast, go 3 seconds. So having said that, that's kind of where I vision the recruiter is still in America, which it kind of makes sense. They still are, based off my conversations. I haven't done it in 10 years, but I still network with recruiters and they're still busy. So having said that, if this recruiter finds a candidate that's viable and goes to the hiring manager with him or her and says, here's this resume, and the hiring manager's like, yeah, I got them on LinkedIn right here. And if it's two different people, you're making them stop what they're doing, and they have to start talking about what person is this. So I'm a believer of keep it the same, so that way it's essentially just an online version of your resume, and here's your one on your desktop, and whatever you're applying to, you use accordingly. Now, having said that, there are going to be recruiters that like the more personable LinkedIns, or they want to see a little bit more of a story in their summary, or a little bit more of a maybe using a personal pronoun, which, again, only in a cover letter for me, or follow-up thank yous. Those are fine. Other than that, though, no pronouns. But some might, and that's fine. Again, there's no proven theory. Okay, every hiring manager and recruiter are different. They might be the same recruiter and hiring manager, but it's Thursday instead of Monday, and now they're a different recruiter because it's Monday and they're mad. and so they're going to be more aggressive. I mean, it's literally livelihoods are at stake based off of emotions every day, and it's crazy to me. But it's what it is. So, having said that, so I keep it the same. I like that if you don't get too personable or fluffy, because again, I'd like to keep it professional. Fill in everything on LinkedIn. Don't leave any stone unturned, and also, moreover, on that, auto-populate everything, because LinkedIn's doing a fantastic job now of pre-populating, auto-populating words. Click on it then. Don't be the one that doesn't click on the auto-populating, because LinkedIn Recruiter, which is like a software, we won't bore the audience with the behind-the-scenes stuff, but there's like a software out there LinkedIn allows recruiters to use that will filter their searches even more, kind of however they want to manipulate them. It's not just here's your title and then you wait, so you can really start getting some really narrow searches. So they use those skills that are auto-populated, those schools that are auto-populated, they use that sometimes in their searches. Maybe they want someone coming from Ford only, or GM or whatever. And so if you didn't auto-populate Ford or GM, you're not going to get in that search. So having said that, auto-populate everything, big believer of that. Maximize your visibility. The more fun stuff you do add, and by that I mean some media, some projects, little just brochures of that stuff's all good, because that stuff is easy for them to see. They don't even have to click it if they don't want, and it doesn't take up much space. So you're just adding a little bit of addendums. I like the addendum thing. It shows you stand out a little bit. Projects, volunteer groups, or affiliate, it's so funny. They I don't know how they change these like things around so much, but it's like, I think it's still groups on there. Might be affiliation on LinkedIn. It's like, it might've been in the group last week, but anyway, so, you fill out as much of these categories as you can. And, my last bit is though, is if you take the endorsement section is so important, and people just kind of don't even think of it ever, because it's at the bottom and it's buzzwords and people are just like, whatever. But really, like, try to get the 50. I think it's still 50. And get the important 50. If you did, get rid of MS Outlook. You don't need Outlook on your endorsements.
There's a whole blog post on that, isn't it? Get rid of Word and Excel.
Get rid of Word. It's funny. I still will use Word depending, though. I mean, there's certain professions that you're going to need to put it on there still. But yeah, I really, like, if it's a network engineer and they've got like 50 other technical proficiencies, your Word's not staying on. But, so depending on, what your situation is, though, really try to hone in on those main 50 skills, because a lot of people will have ones from like college and they're like, oh yeah, I did PowerPoint in college and I've had it on my LinkedIn since then. And it's like, you haven't done PowerPoint in 15 years and you hate it. Like, don't keep that on there. So that's my last bit, is that people forget about the endorsements, and it's so important. And I just wish people would know about it. I don't think
it's
people.
Funny when you're talking, Matt. I can picture you talking with your clients. It's like, you're for 15 years. It's not going on the resume.
I drill sergeant. I'm pretty hard. Yeah, no, I'd rather not give them a runaround. It's much easier if everyone just knows, what expectations are in the hiring world, and how you can fit in that world of job hunting, and how you could be a better candidate during this transition until you get in your next role, where you don't have to worry about us then. Now you don't come back to us for 5 years, hopefully. But there is a world you got to live in while you're unemployed and looking, and we're kind of the understanders of it. And so tap, whether it's me or you guys or the million other free documents out there on Google that you can pretty much probably put together a nice job hunting strategy just Googling for a couple of days. There's plenty of advice out there, and people know what they're doing, so take it.
Fantastic.
Excellent. I think we are close to an hour. Thank you very much, Matt. Thanks for getting up, early and getting ready with this, because we do appreciate the time of you. And sorry, I don't know why we couldn't make the LinkedIn live work, but all the listeners, don't worry. I'm going to put the YouTube link, so that I'll also send a YouTube link to you, Matt, too, so you can spread the word, because the things that we discussed are pretty important for the job seeker, whether you are in US, Australia, or in New Zealand. It doesn't matter. I think they are still transcends the boundaries of various countries. So thank you very much, Matt, again, and we would love to have you on again, and we'll talk about hidden job market or something,
Yeah.
which is still a very hot topic, and in this pandemic times, I think it is far more important than anything else.
Absolutely. We could do some virtual interview and stuff too. That's starting to really that's coming at us hard. So yeah, I've been doing some webinars on that. So yeah, there's a bunch of stuff. It's but don't get overwhelmed, job seeker. Remember, just doesn't. We're not inventing rockets. All right, we just be logical.
Or else.
Thanks for having me. That was fun. And you guys get some sleep.
Yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure. I just want to remind people, if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. We've just starting to put our videos up, and we'd love to get a bit of YouTube love, I think. So, and also please follow the hashtag Career Care Package on LinkedIn, and you can see, well, not this video, but every other video that we've done. So, and that's about it. So I'll let you do the sign off, Nish.
Thank you very much, everyone. Have a good night. And if you are listening to Matt from United States, have a great day, Matt. And we will see you tomorrow, 3 p.m. Melbourne time, which is around about 16 hours time. We will see you again, and we'll do this again, not with Matt, with Kashif. Until then, have a great night, everyone. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.